I never believed in love at first sight until it happened to me, Michael whispers, his voice catching as he looks at Emma across their kitchen. She's making pancakes with their daughter, flour dusting her nose just like the day they met. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need when you least expect it. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life love stories that remind us all that magic still exists in this world. Emma stared at her reflection in the mirror, deliberately ignoring the colorful dresses hanging in her closet. Instead, she pulled on faded jeans and a simple gray sweater that had seen better days. Her roommate Lily leaned against the doorframe, eyebrows raised in obvious disapproval. "That's what you're wearing on a blind date? You look like you're going to clean out the garage." Emma shrugged, twisting her hair into a messy bun. "That's the point. I'm tired of men who only see what's on the outside. If this guy—" "Michael," Lily interjected. "If this Michael person is worth my time, he'll see past what I'm wearing." Emma dabbed on lip balm instead of lipstick. "Besides, after 4 disastrous dates in a row, my expectations are underground." Lily sighed dramatically. "You're sabotaging yourself. At least wear the blue top that brings out your eyes." "Nope." Emma grabbed her bag. "I'm 32, Lily. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not just to impress a stranger. If he doesn't like the real me, plain clothes and all, then we're both wasting our time." What Emma didn't say was how exhausted she felt. How each date that ended with a man clearly disappointed she wasn't as glamorous or carefree as her profile suggested left another tiny crack in her heart. How she'd started to believe that perhaps she was meant to be alone, focusing on her career as a children's librarian and the stories she wrote at night that no publisher seemed to want. Michael checked his watch for the 3rd time, bouncing his knee nervously under the table. The coffee shop was busy for a Tuesday evening, filled with students from the nearby university and professionals unwinding after work. "Daddy, is she here yet?" 6-year-old Sophie looked up from her hot chocolate, whipped cream dotting her upper lip. "Not yet, sweetheart." Michael wiped her mouth with a napkin. "Remember, you promised to be on your best behavior." "I know." Sophie nodded solemnly. "No asking personal questions, no talking about mommy leaving, and no spilling drinks." Michael's heart squeezed painfully. Sophie shouldn't have to remember rules like that, shouldn't have to worry about scaring away potential stepmothers. But after his wife walked out 2 years ago, declaring that motherhood had been a mistake, dating as a single father had proven nearly impossible. He hadn't planned to bring Sophie tonight, but his babysitter had cancelled last minute. When he'd called to reschedule with Emma, she'd surprised him by suggesting he bring his daughter along. "I work with kids every day," she'd said. "I'd love to meet her." The bell above the door jingled, and Michael looked up to see a woman in simple jeans and a gray sweater enter. Her face was mostly makeup-free, her hair pulled back in a casual bun. She scanned the room, and when their eyes met, something shifted in Michael's chest, a recognition he couldn't explain. Emma spotted them immediately, the handsome man with kind eyes and the little girl swinging her legs beneath the table. Her stomach fluttered with unexpected nerves. She'd been prepared for disappointment, had dressed to invite it even, but something about the way the man stood when he saw her made her wish she'd listened to Lily after all. "Emma?" he asked as she approached. She nodded, suddenly self-conscious about her plain appearance. "And you must be Michael." His smile was warm, reaching his eyes in a way that made them crinkle at the corners. "This is my daughter, Sophie. My sitter cancelled, I hope that's okay." "Of course." Emma smiled at the little girl. "I love your unicorn shirt, Sophie." Sophie beamed. "Daddy says unicorns aren't real, but I told him he just doesn't know where to look." Emma laughed, settling into the chair Michael pulled out for her. "I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes the most magical things are hiding in plain sight." Michael watched the interaction with visible relief. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Chai latte, please. No fancy additions." As Michael went to order, Sophie leaned forward conspiratorially. My daddy is nervous. He changed his shirt 3 times. Emma felt her cheeks warm. Can I tell you a secret? I'm nervous too. Why? You're pretty even without fancy clothes. Daddy says it's what's in here that matters. Sophie tapped her chest over her heart. Emma's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. Michael returned with Emma's drink to find her and Sophie giggling together. The sight made his breath catch. It had been so long since he'd heard his daughter laugh like that with anyone besides him. What did I miss? He asked, sliding Emma's chai across the table. Girl talk, Emma replied with a wink at Sophie. The conversation flowed easily after that. Emma told them about her work at the library, the children's books she wrote in her spare time, and her collection of mismatched teacups. Michael shared stories about his architectural firm, his struggle to learn how to braid Sophie's hair, and his disastrous attempts at baking birthday cakes. Daddy burned my cake last year, Sophie announced. The fire alarm went off and everything. Michael groaned. Thanks for sharing that, sweetheart. Emma laughed. If it makes you feel better, I once set spaghetti on fire. I didn't even know that was possible. How did you do that? Michael asked, fascinated. I forgot I was cooking it, went to answer the phone, and somehow the water evaporated. Next thing I knew, I had flaming pasta. Their laughter mingled together, and Michael found himself studying Emma's face. She wasn't conventionally stunning in the way his ex-wife had been, with her expensive highlights and perfect makeup. But there was something about Emma's genuine smile, the intelligence in her eyes, and the gentle way she spoke to Sophie that he found infinitely more beautiful. As the evening progressed, Emma forgot all about her plain clothes and messy hair. Michael listened when she spoke, really listened, asking thoughtful questions about her stories and her dreams. And Sophie, sweet, precocious Sophie, had stolen her heart within minutes. When Sophie began to yawn, Michael checked his watch reluctantly. We should probably head home. It's past someone's bedtime. But I'm having fun. Sophie protested, even as she rubbed her eyes. Me too, Emma said softly, surprised to realize how much she meant it. Outside the coffee shop, an awkward moment hung between them as they prepared to say goodbye. I had a really nice time, Michael said, his voice sincere. So did I. Emma shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Could we maybe do this again? Maybe dinner next time? I promise I'll find a sitter so you don't have to. I'd love to see both of you again, Emma interrupted. Sophie too. Unless, you'd prefer adult time. The relief on Michael's face was palpable. Most women run for the hills when they realize Sophie is part of the package deal. I'm not most women. Emma smiled. And Sophie is delightful. Can Emma come to the park with us on Saturday? Sophie asked, tugging on her father's hand. We're going to feed the ducks. Michael looked at Emma questioningly. I love ducks, she said. And I make excellent sandwiches for picnics. As they exchanged numbers, their fingers brushed, sending an unexpected current through Emma's body. When she looked up, Michael was watching her with an expression that made her heart race. I'm really glad you dressed the way you did tonight, he said quietly. Emma tilted her head. Why's that? Because I got to see the real you right from the start. Their park date led to movie nights with Sophie, quiet dinners after she went to bed, and long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Emma learned about Michael's heartbreak when his wife left, how he'd struggled to be both mother and father to Sophie while keeping his career afloat. Michael discovered Emma's insecurities about her writing, her fear of rejection that extended beyond publishers to relationships. 3 months after their first date, Emma sat cross-legged on Michael's living room floor, helping Sophie with a school project, when she caught him watching her with that look, the one that made her feel seen in ways she never had before. What? She asked, self-conscious. Nothing. He smiled. Just thinking how lucky we are that you wore that gray sweater. Later that night, after Sophie was asleep, Michael took Emma's hand as they sat on his porch swing. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice serious. Emma's heart stuttered. This was it, the moment when he'd tell her it wasn't working, that Sophie needed more stability, that she wasn't enough. I've been afraid to say this, he continued, because the last time I loved someone, she walked away and nearly destroyed me. Emma held her breath. But I'm more afraid of not saying it. Michael's eyes held hers. I'm falling in love with you, Emma. Not just because Sophie adores you, though she does. Not because you're beautiful, though you are, especially in that ratty gray sweater. He smiled. I'm falling in love with your heart, your mind, your soul. Tears filled Emma's eyes. I've been falling for you since you said you set spaghetti on fire, she whispered. Their first kiss tasted like promises neither had believed in before that moment. 6 months later, Emma moved into their home, bringing her collection of mismatched teacups and half-finished manuscripts. Sophie helped her unpack, chattering excitedly about sharing the bathroom and having someone to braid her hair properly. Are you going to be my new mommy? Sophie asked as they arranged books on a shelf. Emma knelt to meet her eyes. I would be honored to be your mom, Sophie. But only if that's what you want. And only when you're ready. Sophie considered this seriously. I think I'm ready now. Daddy is happier when you're here. And you make the best pancakes. High praise indeed. Emma laughed, blinking back tears. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Michael found Emma on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. Everything okay? He asked, joining her. Perfect. She leaned against him. Sophie asked if I was going to be her new mom today. Michael tensed slightly. What did you say? That I'd be honored, but only when she was ready. Emma looked up at him. Was that okay? His answer was a kiss that left her breathless. More than okay, he whispered against her lips. But now I have a question of my own. When he slid from the swing to one knee, Emma's hands flew to her mouth. I had a whole speech planned, Michael said, his voice shaking slightly as he pulled out a small velvet box. About how you walked into that coffee shop in the plainest clothes I'd ever seen and still took my breath away. About how you loved my daughter as if she were your own from day one. About how you've brought color and laughter back into our lives. Emma couldn't stop the tears now. But all I really need to say is this, I love you, Emma. Will you marry me? The ring was simple and perfect, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the library where Emma worked. Sophie served as flower girl and ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle in a dress she'd helped design. Emma wore a simple white dress, elegant but unadorned. When Michael saw her, his eyes filled with tears. You look beautiful, he whispered when she reached him. Even without the gray sweater, she teased. Especially without the gray sweater. Their vows were personal and heartfelt. Michael promised to support Emma's dreams, to never take her for granted, to love her on her plainest days and her most radiant ones. Emma vowed to be not just a wife but a mother to Sophie, to create a home filled with stories and laughter, to love them both with every fiber of her being. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sophie couldn't contain her excitement, throwing her arms around both of them before they could even kiss. We're a real family now, she exclaimed. And as they embraced, the three of them linked together in love that had begun on a blind date with plain clothes and open hearts. Emma knew she had found her happily ever after. 1 year later, Emma sat at her desk, staring in disbelief at the email on her screen. After dozens of rejections, a publisher wanted her children's book series, stories inspired by a little girl who believed in unicorns and a father who had taught her to look for magic in everyday life. Michael, she called, her voice trembling with excitement. He appeared in the doorway, Sophie right behind him. "What is it?" "They want my books," she whispered. "All of them." The celebration that followed, dancing around the kitchen, impromptu cupcakes, calls to family and friends, was joyous and chaotic. That night, as they lay in bed, Michael pulled Emma close. "I always knew you could do it. I wouldn't have had the courage to keep trying without you two believing in me." Michael traced her cheek with his finger. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you dressed up for that blind date?" Emma considered this. "I might have looked more impressive, but I wouldn't have been me. And you might have fallen for an image instead of the real person." "I would have fallen for you no matter what you wore," Michael said. "But I'm glad I got the real you from the very beginning." As they drifted toward sleep, Emma thought about the twists of fate that had brought them together: a cancelled babysitter, a decision to dress plainly, a little girl who believed in magic. Sometimes the greatest love stories began in the most ordinary ways. "And that's how I knew your mom was the one," Michael finishes, looking at their daughter with a smile. "She wasn't trying to impress me. She was just being herself." Emma joins them at the table, setting down a plate of pancakes shaped like unicorns. "Your father is exaggerating. I looked like a mess that day." "The most beautiful mess I'd ever seen," Michael insists, pulling her down for a kiss. "You, gross," Sophie groans, though her smile betrays her. Emma laughs, her heart full as she looks at her family, the husband who fell in love with her authentic self, the daughter who taught her the meaning of unconditional love, and the baby boy sleeping soundly in the next room. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with love at first sight, but with seeing, truly seeing, another person for exactly who they are. And sometimes, the plainest beginnings lead to the most extraordinary lives.